Tomboy Official, what is up? What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the pod. We're officially in 2025. I'm pretty sure everybody else is posting a whole ton of content about that. So, and I kind of did a little blurb about it, so we don't have to keep on talking about it because we're already here. But let's see. The other day I came up across a post about dating. I'm in a group on Facebook, a couple groups. One of them is for kind of like women who are lesbians. They kind of, I don't know if it's specific. Like, I think it was started initially for people who came out later in life. Just kind of a social group online for people to kind of talk and interact and kind of like have a shared experience, because they're coming out later in life, like maybe in their 30s, maybe in their 40s, maybe in their 50s, versus, people who come out. I don't know. I mean, where is the line of early and late, right? But I would say, this is my opinion personally. It sounds like if you're in college, like pretty much college age range, from about 18 to 22 or something, 18 to 21, 22, somewhere around there. Um, I feel like anything within the college range or younger, it might be college age or younger might be considered like not old age. Because I feel like that is where a lot of society, at least in the US, starts dating or looking into dating. I'd say people do start younger. Some people start around junior high or so, and it might depend on like their parents' permission or just kind of how they are, you know, skilled with dating, or not skilled or whatever. It might just depend on what they've got going on, um, to see like if they're gonna actually date at that age. Um, but usually, once people kind of move away, or leave and go to college, or move out of the house from their parents, or start living with housemates, roommates, whatever that looks like, a lot of times the people who maybe were restricted from like high school or junior high age, if you had like strict family, like once you get older you kind of move out and start dating more. um so I kind of wanted to talk about the places people meet, um maybe starting to talk about like some of the places where people have maybe approached me. Now, I'm not saying they were necessarily approaching me to date me. I don't know what their intention was. Sometimes I totally knew what their intention was, other times I did not. And so I would say, as far as like meeting people who could be potentials, where you're kind of like in an environment where it's a little more comfortable to talk to somebody, um, events. So I would say clubs, bars, yes. Gay clubs, bars, yes. And I guess I should have mentioned too, with the 18 to 22 age range, or like around there, I would say maybe with the economy as it is and everything, we could probably push that almost to age like 25, 27 or something, when people might consider being more independent, even if you're not going to school, or leaving to like move to a university or campus or something. If you move out and you're living with like people and just working a job to support yourself independently, I would say that would probably count as well. But what would what would that look like? Um, what would that look like? I would say, um, trying to date a person who is maybe um, more. I'm so distracted with people walking past. Sorry. Windows are closed and there's pedestrians. People are out getting their steps in today, which is good. It's cool to see people out and about. And it's sunny over here in LA, so I was like, let me get out and get some freaking vitamin D. But I kind of laugh about vitamin D now because somebody made a joke, a penile joke. And now whenever I think of vitamin D, I think of something else. But I actually mean from the sunshine. But I guess if I would say places, because we all know that I go out a lot, not as much as I want to, and lately not as many places as I would prefer. But I would just say for people that are queer, that are looking to date people, clubs, bars, I mean, those are almost like a given. Women's events, drag shows, that kind of thing. Because those environments, they're like, it's kind of like socially acceptable to just spark up a convo with somebody. It's not considered like odd. Like if you went to a restaurant, for example, by yourself and started like initiating conversation and just went and sat next to somebody, that would be weird. But there are places like, I mean, it's not a queer space, but there's a place called Eat at Joe's. I don't know if there are a lot of places like this, but to give you an example of what it's like if you've never been, it's kind of like a breakfast diner type of menu, but the style is almost like high school cafeteria vibes. So it has like these long picnic tables, and you don't really necessarily sit only with the people that you've ordered with. You kind of end up sitting near kind of any old body, wherever there's kind of space, and you just kind of get your food and eat. Now, you're not guaranteed to be able to talk to someone, but, and I don't know any other restaurants that really do that. There might be events where they're like that, but I can't think of any other, like, restaurant that's like, where you go in and like pay it. It's like a sit down restaurant technically, but I guess the difference is that it's a little bit cafeteria stylish. Like if we're not talking like stereotypical, like with the popular kids or whatever high schools look like nowadays, because I don't even know. Even when I went to school, I don't know if they were necessarily popular kids. They were like the ones that were more maybe attractive or mature looking or more confident, and of course like they were kind of like the ones that people wanted to date and things. But I wouldn't necessarily say that there was too much of a culture of like football players, jocks, like picking on like the kids that were kind of more brainy. I don't really, I didn't fully notice that. Like there was kind of like the insecure people that were kind of like not nice to people, but I never saw it as like a whole like theme of like, oh, if you're on the chess club versus the kids that are on the football team, it's like there wasn't anything like that. So I would say it like that's not the vision I'm trying to give. Like visually, I'm not trying to give it like it's not like a popularity contest at this restaurant. It's more like whoever's there at that time, you sit near whoever is there. And it's kind of a social place. I've only been there with groups of people, so I don't think I've been there alone. If I've been there alone, it was maybe the takeout, but I don't really remember going alone. I feel like I really wanted to go and get food from there back when I first went, and so I feel like I would have, because I've driven past it like hundreds of times by now. But, yeah, you could sit down in that restaurant, and it basically gives you like opportunities to kind of spark up a conversation in an environment that's not like a normal restaurant where it's so, private tables, and kind of like the social norm is like don't talk to people. Like unless someone like approaches you or talks to you or overhears you or asks you for like your ketchup or something like random, like usually you're not going to restaurants to kind of like meet other singles or whatever. Um, that's usually not the case. Um, so that's one way I would say if you find restaurants that are like that. Restaurants aren't really the place, but restaurants that kind of have like a theme like that, or maybe like an event. I've seen events at bars where I've been where I remember going to a bar in San Diego. It was what was this bar? It was not Flicks. Uptown Tavern. Um Now they have a front little patio. They have like a main bar in the main section, and then they have a like the bathrooms. They have a little back hallway where I think there's still seating there, and then past that back hallway, there's like a whole outside, like kind of little backyard ish vibe of a patio. San Diego's pretty dope, like with its bar culture. There are a lot of bars where there's the outdoor space, so either the little front porch, front patio kind of space that's like curb. It's not quite on the curb, but it's like you have the street, you have the curb, you have the little space between the actual curb and the sidewalk if there's grass or no grass or whatever, or maybe just a solid sidewalk, and then what the fence that usually divides the restaurant from the sidewalk. So usually once you're at that fence, there's like a patio area right on the other side of those fences. A lot of restaurants and bars and clubs have those types of spaces in San Diego and LA too. And it makes it pretty cool because it's like, for me, I don't know what it is about the outdoor space, but it gives it more of a like a house party vibe where you're like, oh, I'm just at like a house party out on somebody's front porch or out in somebody's little backyard, just chilling. It's kind of more outdoors. For me, it feels more comfortable. You can go out there, talk to people. So I kind of gravitate towards those types of spaces because it's a little more, it feels a little more open to talk to people. I mean, bars and clubs too, but it's kind of like sometimes I'm like, well, I might not really want to dance with somebody, or I might not want them dancing on me or whatever. And it's like, it might be some kind of situation where I'm like, I kind of just want to chat. And usually the music inside is so loud, it's like you can't fully have a conversation. So for me, it's easier to start outside instead of ask somebody to come outside, because sometimes they don't want to come outside. So it's like, well, you know, I've met plenty of people on a patio and a little back patio, but this event that I saw, it was a lot of gray-haired people. So I think it was an event where, and I think it was in July. It wasn't 2024. It was like in 2025 of July, because I remember it was Black Pride weekend, and I was there before going into Rich's Black Pride event. So that was 2023, and it was my second Black Pride in San Diego. And yeah, that year was the year that I went in, and yeah, I was there. I was like, Uptown Tavern wasn't hosting a Black Pride event, but Rich's is like pretty much across the street for the most part. And so we basically went there. Well, I was there, was meeting somebody there who got there late, and then some other friends happened to be there, and in the process of trying to get to the bathroom or looking for my friend or whatever I was doing when I first got there, I had peeked in the back and saw that there were a bunch of older aged ladies, a lot of silver-haired ladies back there. You know, by a lot of their haircuts, I kind of assumed that there was a lot of gayness. I'm assuming it wasn't like a straight work party, you know, with a bunch of old nurses that were women or something. Like, it didn't feel like that. It felt like they were there to kind of like interact. And people had drinks and stuff too. And there was music. It was cool, but it was an actual event that was being hosted. It wasn't like the classic bar or club. And I don't know if it was like an official event, by Uptown Tavern, or if some people were like, we're just gonna host our own meetup event and you guys come to the back, we'll all be back there. Or maybe it was like a work party, maybe it was like a wedding thing. I don't really know what it was, but it was something where there were people that were there talking. And I would say that when it comes to like meeting people at bars and clubs, like if you still like bars and clubs, but the classic bar or club environment is kind of hard for you, I would say looking for those types of events that might be going on. Um, because people are clearly there to meet people. Like at bars and clubs, they're there to meet people too sometimes, but sometimes they're not. Um, I would say coffee shops can be a tough one because it's like sometimes people are there. You know, if you're a regular, you kind of notice the same people over and over and over again. Um, and other times it's like, well, maybe they're busy, they're reading, they're on their computer, they're doing something that looks productive, and so you don't really want to like interrupt them and be like up in their, up in their workflow. And then sometimes too, if it's someone who's always there, like I know how I am when I go to certain places. It's like, because I've lived in the same neighborhood for a really long time, like my family has, and so there are places where, even when I was in high school, some of the same people work at the same spots, or they've like come back to the same jobs because it was always like a solid backup plan, or like that place was always hiring or something, and like I just happened to roll back into town or show up at the time when certain workers were having their shift. And that's happened often where there's been like somebody who has a shift, um like a person who has a shift, but it's someone I recognize because I've been going there for so many years. And then sometimes it's like, for me as a customer, even sometimes I'm like, I really don't want to talk to them. Like not in a mean way. They're not mean. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just sometimes you just want to go. It's like opposite of that theme song for the show Cheers, where there's like sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your names. Like sometimes you want to go where nobody knows you. Like like, and there's specific subways in my neighborhood where it's like I know the people who work there, and it's like it's cool, but it's like, because it's cool to catch up when you feel like catching up, and then other times it's like I don't really feel like catching up. So, it's like, where have you been the past like 5 years or 10 years or however long it's been? And then it's like I just wanted my freaking like turkey sandwich. Like I wasn't really trying to like talk to anybody. Like sometimes I'm not like in a mood like that, and so I feel like at coffee shops it's almost that same vibe. Like I don't want to make somebody feel like that, where I'm like, where I know, okay, maybe they come here all the time, but just because we both come here all the time doesn't mean that they want to talk. Just kind of like, you know, like there was a subway worker that he's someone that our family runs into often, and there's nothing wrong with him. He's fun, he's playful, but I remember way back once when he learned that my sister was studying Spanish, he was like, oh, like try to order in Spanish and like stuff like that, where it's kind of like, it wasn't like he wasn't like withholding the food and being like, if you can't say it in Spanish, I'm not gonna give you your sandwich. But he was kind of like a worker who never interacted with you might never say something like that, and he was someone who had interacted with us multiple times, and so he was a little comfortable, just kind of being a little playful, and he was a Spanish speaker, so um, and I don't know, my sister wasn't like offended, I don't think, but it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, if you don't like know somebody or like see them regularly, you're not gonna like do that when you're on the job. You're not gonna be like, everybody order in Spanish, to practice your Spanish. Like you kind of keep it like super. I wouldn't say that's unprofessional, but it's more like playful. But stuff like that, where it's kind of like, if I were to go to another subway, I would know if it was some random subway, clerk, they would be very unlikely to be like trying to be like playful and stuff like that. And so it's kind of like, but yeah, I don't know if I'd want to initiate with somebody at a coffee shop, because sometimes people are there because they like the quiet space. Maybe if you see them talking to people more often, or if they say hi to you or something. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really here to like give specific advice about like all the little like nuanced things to like see. Because sometimes I think I miss the nuanced stuff. I tend to miss it until after, because I'm a reflective person, so I'll do a lot of reflecting after the fact of something going on, and then I'll come back around to like somewhere I've been or someone who's interacted with me, and I was like, oh, that person totally thought I was blowing them off, probably, like, and I totally would have talked to them, you know, if I knew that they were like approaching me because they wanted to talk. I mean, it's usually unprovoked. I'm not doing anything. I'm not making eyes on anybody across the room or anything. I'm just minding my own business, and I'm not often places by myself. Sometimes I am, but usually I'm just kind of like chilling, you know, with friends and stuff. And so, and I don't really like it when people come talk to me in front of my friends. That's not really my thing. I don't really prefer that. I kind of like my space. I kind of have a friend who used to try to set me up with people. Um, and in a way, I appreciated it. In another way, it was like, dude, I don't really want that. I remember it must have been a Pride event or something at Gossip. It was super crowded, and we were in the like we're like standing in the not in the main room, but in that back room, not back room, but not in the main room, but there's like two bars in Gossip Grill. There's one that's like enclosed in this area that has like these glass doors kind of, and there's a bar back there that's usually where there's a DJ. Well, there's DJs on the front part too, but usually that's the area where there's not the main bathroom. There's like one bathroom, the kitchen's in the back, and and there's like a little stage. And then sometimes when the stage isn't there, I don't know if they still have the pool table. They used to way back, but I don't know if they ever bring it out anymore. But sometimes when the stage isn't, when there's nothing going on the stage, they'll have seating, and you know, it'll be like some kind of meal. People can order meals and stuff, or it's just like all standing room with maybe like a couple tables sprinkled towards the back or something. And then they have the patio in the front and stuff too. Both one or two patios. I can't remember how many patios Gossip has. I think they have two patios, one on the left, one on the right. I don't know. I get all these places mixed up, but basically, yeah, I remember being there once with a friend who was like, yeah, it was a Pride event, and they were trying to like set me up with somebody, and they're like, oh, you should like meet people. What kind of people are you into? And I'm all like, okay, that's already like a deep question. Not like I didn't want to tell them, but it was like a deeper question, because I'm like, I can't just say like who I'm in. Like, if I'm just looking and I don't know somebody, that's a whole different thing that I would be into compared to if I actually have a conversation and get to know a person's like personality more. Then I kind of have a different type than just looking at somebody walking past me. If I'm looking for something that would attract my attention, I told this person I like androgynous looking people. That's one of the many things, but I would say things that capture my attention would be that, like someone who's got like an androgynous look to them, someone who's got maybe like some kind of like a subculture look to them, like punk. Like, I was just sitting here when I started recording, there was someone who walked past. They kind of had that like emo androgynous kind of look with the hair swooped and all the black garb with the tight skinny jeans and all like those pins and spikes and stuff all over. Like, stuff like that catches my attention because I'm really into music and different like art forms and things. And so if I see someone like that, sometimes I will assume we might have at least the music in common, some of it, and some of the culture that goes with that. But I don't look like I would, you know, be into that. Like, but I am, but I don't like look the part. I'm in the other types of music and other types of stuff too, but I mean, just as far as like music is concerned, just as far as like a look is concerned, I don't look anything like I I don't look like I play guitar. I don't look like I'm in the metal. I don't look like I'm in the punk. There's nothing about me that usually like screams like, music lover, unless I'm wearing like a band shirt or something. And that's something that I like to see too, is like band shirts and stuff like that. Um and I don't know, I've always kind of liked that kind of like style, that kind of like emo-ish kind of style. Um but I don't know. I mean, it doesn't say that much about someone's personality. I just kind of like it. I think it's kind of fun, and especially nowadays that it's like a little bit more outdated. You don't see like everybody walking around looking like that anymore. Like there was a phase where everybody kind of looked that way, and now it's like out of fashion, kind of like the fashion has come and gone. So now the only people who are still dressing like that are the people who like are really into dressing like that. And it's not just like, oh, I'm dressing like this, but it has nothing to do with the music or anything. Usually it has to do with like the music, and the culture surrounding it. So I'd say that's something that I find attractive, even though it's not all the time, but just kind of like that type of look. And this is if I know nothing about somebody. Those would be the things that would probably draw my attention, or even like a band shirt, or like somebody that's got like a look to them that, looks like they're either emulating like some type of musician or something. I don't know how to explain it, but it's really a personality based thing. Like if I don't know somebody, I have like absolute zero interest if I don't know someone. So and here comes this person again, literally walking across the street again. So, but yeah, I would say, um, that's something that I find attractive. It's not the only thing, but if I'm just like looking, I mean, it's not like a race thing. It's not like a hair length thing all the time. It's more like a stylistic look that to me maybe signals something specific about that person. I could be wrong with it too. I could be completely wrong with it. Like somebody to me might look androgynous, and then to them they're like, that's not even what I was going for. I just got like a haircut like this, or like it was a bed or a dare, or like whatever. Like I don't know, like it could be some random other thing that has nothing to do with something that I'm attracted to. But I mean, if those people are like jerks or aren't really into like any kind of like similar interests, then of course I have a much harder time having an interest once I got to know them. So that's why I can't always say that's what I'm into. Like here comes this, oh my goodness, these guys. Hopefully where they're going, the people are okay. Oh, they're taking okay, the hospitals are on the other side. I don't know why they are going this way. I don't know, whatever. Maybe they're going somewhere else. But, yeah. So when my friend asked me what kind of people I was attracted to, all I said was like androgynous type of people. And my friend finds like the closest, lady next to her who's just like, here's one, and kind of just like pushes her over to me, and she was just like I don't know what she said to her, but she was kind of like, I guess she was like, talk to my friend likes you or whatever. I don't know what she said. I didn't even see this person, or maybe my friend was asking me like, how about her, and I may have said like, given like a little head nod or something. But I was like, I am not trying to like talk to some random person. I was just having fun sipping my drink and people watching with my friend. I was not trying to like interact with somebody I didn't know, and I was probably already some drinks in. But all I remember doing is like this lady comes over and is like, I don't know what she says, like if it's like if she even introduced herself by name, and I guess we shook hands or something and exchanged names probably, and I just like shot her my number, and she's like, I'll definitely call you, and she totally never did, but she's like, I'll definitely call you or whatever, and like, thanks, like I'm here with friends or whatever, like kind of like goodbye kind of thing. And I was like, what is that? Like that's not how I approach people. Like I would have never even thought to maybe even talk to that person maybe. Like I don't know. I was kind of like, what is going on? Like that was kind of not my style. But there were other times when I was with that same person and we kind of went out, and like I remember this other time there was this like, I guess it was like a guy. I don't know if it was a guy. I think it was a guy, but I can't remember when I'm talking. But I think it was like a guy, and I started just like talking to him because he was smoking. He was vaping something that smelled like really sweet and like sugary, and I like scents, like nice scents. And I was like, oh, like, and he was just on the other side. This was at Gossip. He was on the other side of that, whatever those middle little bars are where you can like stand, but you just kind of put a drink on it, but there's no real space there. He had like a number for his food, and I'm just there, just like me and myself, and my friend's there too, and the friend kind of like looks over at me, or like, I don't know, we're just there listening to the DJs or whatever, and this guy's like smoking something next to me, and I keep smelling it, and I'm like, oh, like it's him. And I was like, oh, what is that? Because I was curious, and I like things that are about vaping, even though I'm not like a nicotine or tobacco type vapor. I still like to know about the products. And I literally I don't know if I had any interest in this guy or whatever. I just literally was like, oh, cool, he has something that's like substance related that I have an interest in knowing about, and he must know more about it than I do because he's owning one and smoking it. And so I just asked him the questions that I was curious about. I wasn't hitting on him. I wasn't interested in him. I didn't know him. There was nothing that like piqued my interest other than identifying that he was where the smell was coming from that I liked. And so I just noticed it was a vape and was kind of asking him the scent or the flavor, or like, and I made a comment like, oh, like I'm into like weed vapes or whatever. Like I don't really smoke that or whatever. But I don't know if he either took it like, because he left, not like right away. I don't think I like spooked him, but he eventually kind of like left from standing exactly next to me, and we were kind of talking, but while we were kind of sparking up that conversation a little bit, like my friend kind of like went and kind of like took a lap or whatever and gave me like a second, because I was just like, I was like, cool, so like she kind of gets it, like I don't really want to be doing this like with other people like right here with me, and it could have either been the comment that I made about weed, because maybe they thought that I was saying that I didn't like the scent of that, or I didn't want to be around it, which at that point, like if I'm outdoors, I really couldn't care less. If I want to move, I'll move, like there was plenty of space. I could have chosen another spot. So either they thought that maybe their smoking was getting in, or vaping was getting in my way, and it wasn't. Or maybe they just didn't want me talking to them, or maybe they had their number, and maybe they were just waiting a while, because they had been there a while, and maybe they just thought, oh, nobody's coming, to bring me my food, so, maybe I should move to the other side by the bar or whatever, or maybe they went to ask about their order or something. And so they, eventually, after we were back and forth a few times about, I don't remember what we said, but I don't remember talking about more than that. And then they kind of went to the other side of the bar, and then my friend eventually comes back and is like, oh, where's that person go or whatever? And I was like, oh, they're kind of over there. And like, I wasn't like interested, but it's like, you know, for me, I've already said how that is probably the easiest thing for me to talk to people with is when there's a patio or like a smoking area, and it's like you can kind of go outside and like either smoke or vape or whatever, and then there's other people smoking or vaping, or if you have just a drink and you can bring your drink outside. um I've had a lot of fun experiences with just like bringing out drinks and stuff. um but I don't know, like I was kind of like, I guess, a little bit um like, I don't really like talking to new people in front of my friends. It's kind of like, I mean, I've done it before. It's always awkward. It's always awkward. I remember this one guy I met in line at a concert, and I was waiting out in line, and I don't know. I was just like, what is going on? Uh, like, I don't know. It wasn't a good idea to meet this dude. Like, he just seemed cool. Like, we were like vibing in line. We'd been in line for a long time together, so like, and like, you're just standing there, and it's like, well, at least we have the band that we like in common, and like, but he wasn't really like super interested. He just seemed like he was having fun chatting. And then, my friend, one of my friends was kind of like approaching him, or like not threatening him, but kind of like not being very gentle. I would say it was like kind of trying to like be like, don't mess with her kind of thing. Not like don't talk to her, stay away from her completely, but more like you guys can talk, but don't make a mistake kind of thing. Just kind of like overprotective kind of thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like like, leave me alone. But I wasn't like super interested. Maybe I was, I don't remember. But I was like, he was really fun to talk to, but he didn't even live in the state. And like, it was, I don't know, it was fun. But yeah, I really am not a fan of it. That's not something that normally happens, but I'm still not a fan of like meeting up with people while I'm with other people. And if I am, I don't want to do it right next to them. Like, I'd rather go off somewhere and go away to a distance and go do it that way, so that at least, the whole conversation isn't overheard, or we're not like completely involved with each other like that. But I don't know. That's one thing I never really liked about like parties and things. It's kind of like, depending on what you're doing and what happens, other people might be figuring that out. But yeah, like, for me, it's not very easy to meet people in a way it's easier, but I would say ideal, like perfect scenario is like have a wing person so you can like meet people, but then it's like they're not like sticking right next to you the whole time. It's like if you start to talk to someone, they kind of like leave it for a second unless you kind of like talk or something. That's kind of a little easier than like, let's all talk to this person, or like whatever. Like it's I don't know. There are scenarios where for me it's way more ideal, and then other scenarios where I'm like, I really wouldn't want it to happen that way. But yeah, sometimes it's a little easier that way for me. But yeah, like I don't really know um like, as far as, you know uh as far as like um sorry, I am like, yeah, bars, clubs, patios, planned parties or like events. There's this thing in LA. It's like a bingo rave or something. I never actually went. I was gonna go a couple times and I never made it. But that's another event that seems like you sit it's bingo, but there's a lot of like EDM going on and stuff. But I think you have to stay seated. I don't think you're allowed to like get up and dance necessarily. At least from what I've seen of footage of it, people weren't like dancing necessarily. They were playing bingo, but there were like intermissions, like multiple breaks where there was the music going and everything. Um, but yeah, I don't think like I don't think it's necessarily like um it's not that complicated, I guess. Like, but yeah, I would say, I mean, definitely concerts, raves, music festivals. I mean, those are pretty easy places to meet people. Um, as far as just talking to anybody about, I mean, if you're there, you can talk about the band, you know, you can talk about the DJs or whatever event it is that you're going to. You can talk about the singer or whatever it is. Like, and even if they hate the music, you can still ask them what they like, you know, like it's a pretty it's a pretty sociable thing. Not everybody wants you talking to them, but you can kind of like scope out a situation and see if somebody seems like they're maybe by themselves. That doesn't mean that they want to talk to you, you know, but yeah, there have been times, you know, where I've definitely talked to a lot of people um at like concerts, events, waiting in line with people forever. If you're in line for like 90 minutes or something, it's like, yeah, like but you know, certain situations like that, you can't like choose who you're near unless you go like backwards, like towards the back of the line more. You can't really cut in line in front of people and just be like, oh, I want to stand here so I can talk to them. Like, you'd probably have to go towards the back of the line more, so at least you're not cutting forward if you saw someone you want to talk to, but that would still be maybe awkward because you're like, I don't know, you just don't want to interfere. Like, because sometimes people really don't want to talk to anyone, you know? Just because they're by themselves doesn't mean that they want to interact with anyone. Maybe they really do want to just totally be by themselves, and that's totally fine. But, you know, or talking to somebody that's with people, that can be a little hard too. But yeah, talking to people that are kind of just solo, that I've seen that at prides multiple times. You know, I've talked to people at prides multiple times, um, and it's usually pretty chill. It's not. I don't know. It's not. It's. I don't know. Some of this stuff isn't like very obvious, but um I just know not a lot of people do bars and clubs. Not a lot of people do dating apps. And so like if you don't do any of those things, like how is it possible to meet? And that's kind of what I'm kind of talking about. Like meetup.com had some events. They have queer events in a lot of places. Some places don't have any queer events or anything like that. Um there's yeah, there's meetups, but you're not guaranteed that there's going to be queer people or queer events. There's sports. I guess the thing is, you might have to leave your house. That's the thing. You might have to go out somewhere and leave your house. Turn off the Netflix or the video games or whatever it is. Turn off the, you know, ESPN or the Home Shopping Network. I don't even know if that even still exists. But turn it off and go outdoors. Um, Take yourself somewhere. I do think it kind of helps to kind of hype up the mood if you are kind of a nervous person, to kind of like interact either with the friend there at that place where you're trying to meet people, or go somewhere with a friend before, just to kind of get that interaction going. Like, of course you have to want to be, don't just like use your friends, but like go out with them someplace and then just afterwards take yourself to another place that you want to go to, or stay at the same spot and like meet people there because you're already kind of warmed up socially a little bit by that point. You're not just going straight from home straight to the club, you know? It's like sometimes you need a little between step, you know, and that can be a between step sometimes if your friend is kind of um like engaging with you. But sometimes it's just kind of easier that way. But um like I don't know, like it's I think trying to meet people, the part about online makes it feel like maybe there's less like you're not just like, okay, I'm leaving my house, but there's only one gay bar in town. There's always a cover, and so every day I go, I'm paying a $10 cover, and I'm just like flushing money down the drain, hoping that I'm gonna like talk to somebody. Like, you know, there's a little bit of like peace of mind that you're not investing that much. You're not investing a lot of time. You're not necessarily getting ready to get on the app unless it's like a video chat or whatever. But it's like you're not necessarily having to get ready or prepare anything, or you know, pay, unless you're paying for the app or the internet or the electricity or whatever it is that you're paying for. But you know, um yeah, sometimes you're just kind of going uh like you can be going with the flow, um and it can be, you know, pretty fun. It can be a pretty fun time, in my opinion, to try to meet people out and about. But it does take a little more energy than the apps. I think the reason why people gravitate towards the apps is because it is kind of like there's a simplicity to it. There's a simplicity to, you know, just logging in from home, from the comfort of your own house, and then being able to just kind of like swipe around and chit chat and see if that goes anywhere, versus like making more effort to go out and then absolutely nothing happens. And the same thing could have happened if you just totally stayed home. Um, but I don't know, like if you're having trouble on the apps, because the apps are limiting. I mean, it has to be someone on the app within your area, within the specifications you already put, that's actually actively using the app and is checking it, you know, preferably during the time that you're actually using it. Like, I don't know if there's even a site that's like Grindr for women. Like, I don't even know if that even exists. Like a hookup kind of thing. It's probably out there. I don't know what it's called, if it is, but you know, people don't usually use like the apps, the dating features on apps with females. Usually people aren't just trying to meet up real quick like that. Some are. Some probably would. I mean, shoot, I probably would, in all honesty. I would, like, because that would just get it. Like, let's just meet. Like, while the momentum is there, you know, because the thing is like, the momentum turns into anxiety for some people, even if they are wanting to do it. It's like, okay, it's a decent enough connection that you'd want to meet, but it's like, okay, are we waiting like half a week, 2 weeks, you know, like, are you still going to feel the same as you do within this 24-hour period? So much can happen between like now and then, and there are just so many variables, where versus like if you just meet someone on the spot, you're kind of a lot more likely to just be like yay or nay. But then also you kind of miss opportunities when it's in person only. Like maybe you really are busy. Maybe you just went to the bar to pick up your food or something because you're on a lunch break, and you had a coupon or something, and you just happen, or dinner or something, and you're working late, and you just happen like stop in, not to party, but you're just there to get something, and somebody tries to talk to you, and you're literally like, I was just dropping in. I wasn't like trying to like converse with anyone. And then you might never come back to that person again. Like you might come back every day and that person never comes back. You know, maybe they didn't live there, or maybe they just didn't like it enough to ever show back up, or you never were there at the same times. And I've also met people where I've got their numbers, and as much as they said they wanted to hang out, we just never ended up meeting up. Um, and I think they had intentions to. At least they said they did. Because, I mean, I had asked quite a few times, not quite a few times, but like at least after a while, I'll ask them, but I'll just throw it out there, like, hey, let me know if I'm bugging you. Like, I won't be offended, you know? And it's like, they could either leave that and not say anything, or just be like, oh, if they say that, like, oh, they've been busy lately, or like, whatever, then it's like, I mean, the ball is kind of in their court. If they want to respond, they can respond. Or if they want to, you know, meet up again, they can meet up again. But I've met people out where it was a fun night, and then, you know, we end up not even ever seeing each other again. Even though the plan was to see each other again. It wasn't really like as a date or anything, but just to like hang, you know. Like, I've met plenty of people where that's the case, where it's like, oh, we're not even gonna like go out anymore, or ever meet up, even though they shared their number. But it's very common to go out and get numbers. Like, if you go out a lot, you'll probably, like, I don't even do anything. I don't have anything about me that looks in any way interesting that somebody should be like, oh, I'm gonna approach this person and talk to them and give them my number. Like, I'm sociable once you start talking to me, if I kind of catch on to the vibe that, like, oh, you're trying to talk to me, and I'm in a headspace where I'm like, oh, like, I can talk to people, and I'm not, like, too stoned or too, like, whatever, like, too tipsy or too just kind of out of it for whatever reason it may be, you know, and I kind of catch the signal of this person is trying to interact, you know, because a lot of times, apparently, I miss it, you know. It's almost never that I'm not wanting to talk to someone. It's usually that I don't notice. There have been a couple times where it's like, there's no depth, like, or if you meet someone who's like way wasted, but I've had a couple times where it's like the person trying to like chat was just awkward. I've talked about the one where there was that dude that was talking about someone trying to fight him or whatever, but I kind of realized the reason he was approaching like the people I was with, the group that I was with, and then him and the lady he was with, was because it was probably because we were like the only dark-skinned people there, and that's probably why they came over. But like, I wasn't like, in my mind, I didn't know how to interact with him, because I was just like, I don't know, like, I don't fight people, like, I don't even know how to like have a conversation. And he wasn't being like aggressive towards us. He was just talking about a scenario where somebody was trying to fight him, and he kept bringing it up over and over again, and I'm just like, what? Like, because he just kept saying how he's like scrappy or whatever and fast, and I'm like, okay. But I was trying to take it to some deeper level of like, oh, like let's talk about this concept of fighting kind of thing, and he was kind of like not on deep level. He was kind of more on like, I guess he kind of wanted other people to be kind of like talking more about the fight scene and like engaging in conversation about the fighting and stuff, and I'm just kind of like, I don't even know. And there's another person, the last time I went anywhere at a gay bar, this dude was like giving people candy, and he seemed okay. I mean, he touched some of the cookies with his fingers, and I didn't eat the candy or the cookies. I was like, just, I don't know this guy, but he was friendly, but he kind of seemed a little bit wasted. But things like that, where it's like, okay, he's giving out candy to people, and like, you know, if he seemed maybe more like someone I wanted to interact with, I might. And I would say those are maybe 2 times. There's probably been more, but those are 2 times kind of maybe more recently than I can remember someone interacting on their own without me prompting this in any way, where I was kind of like, I don't know, like, because for me sometimes it's like I can't really do the like weird small talk where it's like, I can't talk to you about candy, I can't talk to you about fighting. Like, if you're not introducing yourself, or what's your name, or like something that's kind of, I gotta have something a little bit to work with. And that, to me, like, those concepts to me are like so far from something that I would naturally have enough to say. But like, I don't eat candy really. I mean, I have more recently, and then I stopped because my teeth started hurting, but I don't really eat candy that much. Like, it's not really my thing. I got a bag of candy for Christmas and I'm pretty sure it's going to sit there until I feel like I'm going to just toss it out. I don't really eat candy. I don't, I feel like it's a waste of money. Like, I don't really eat it. So, I'm not like against it necessarily. I feel like why would I buy candy? You know, I don't hate it. It's just, I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like, some people are candy eaters. Like, I can't remember the last time I went. Like, I'll buy, like, protein bars, protein cookies, maybe, like, cookies, pretzels, chips, that kind of thing, if anything. Or maybe, like, something that's, like, a juice, or maybe an occasional soda or something. Or, like, whiskey with some Coke or something like that. Like, or ginger ale or something, like Sprite or something like that when my stomach is kind of weird. Like, so I'm not like completely anti-sweets, you know, but I tend to gravitate more. If it's gonna be sweet, it's gonna be fruit or like chocolate covered, like peanuts or walnuts, or you know, I like chocolate covered things like chocolate. Um, but yeah, like candy, I don't really know what. I mean, I'm really not a candy person, you know. Um, so I didn't really know, you know, how to really interact with that. And he was just like coming over and giving them to everybody. Like, he wasn't really like talking. Like, when he, even with the bartender, he didn't seem to have anything, you know, bright to say. And then there was another person in there that I was like, they were really quiet seeming, but I was like, that could have been somebody to spark a conversation with. But who knows if they even wanted to talk. I don't really know. Sometimes it's like you don't really know, you know, but because I don't want to be bothering people. Like, I don't want to be obnoxious, you know. But I do think, I mean, if someone like me runs into people that's trying to talk to them, just from the fact that I go out, like, I don't necessarily. I've only more recently thought about going out places, like since the summer. I've thought about going out places to try to meet people by myself. But I don't normally do that, and I don't normally think about doing that, and I almost never have. Like, other than LA Pride and kind of a local like blues bar, those are the only places I've really been where it's like, okay, maybe I could like find somebody like locally to kind of meet up with, like whatever that looks like. I'm not even going in with more of an agenda than that, than just like meeting someone that possibly lives within a drivable distance in LA, you know, that kind of has something in common, either watching sports or listening to blues, or you know, going to music festivals or pride events or whatever that looks like. You know, like, I'm like, well, I'm in the space where those same people would be, you know. But even in those environments, I mean, those are the only places I've literally gone of all the times I've been talking about going out and like meeting people and stuff. So all the other times where any of these interactions I'm talking about have happened have not been me just like leaving the house like, oh, I'm gonna go meet people today. Like, and I think the times I have tried to meet people, only one of them I don't think I met anybody, but um it was a very straight space too. I think I think the lead singer of the band was lesbian. She gave lesbian vibes, but she was in the middle of her gig. I'm not going to talk to her. And their gig was pretty long, and I was there for a while, and I was like, I didn't really want to stay like way too long. But those types of environments, I mean, that's kind of my vibe, you know? Like, I kind of like it, especially local places, because you're not like driving or Ubering forever to get somewhere and paying a fortune to get somewhere and paying a fortune for parking. Like, sometimes you don't want to invest a whole lot of money, if you don't think anything's going to happen at all. But there have been multiple times where I've been out with people. Most of the time when I'm out with people is probably the easiest, smoothest time to kind of like mingle. Um, Sometimes I've just been by myself though. Like, it's not uncommon that I'm just by myself at a gay bar somewhere, either waiting for somebody else or like everyone I know left and I'm just lingering, and then, you know, there's some convo happening, or like, you know, I end up somewhere else, and I'm talking to people. Like, it happens very often. And I am not the most outgoing person. I'm pretty shy. I'm very shy. Like, I don't, but I like talking to people who seem like they want to talk. Like, if somebody seems like they want to talk to me, then I'm kind of like, okay. And that's kind of how it was working in therapy. It was kind of like, okay, well, these people are here because clearly they want to talk. Like, some of them obviously hated it or were forced to be there or whatever, or just weren't into it or didn't really, they had some doubts or disbelief in the process and everything. And I get that. There's some suspicion or hesitation or bad experiences from the past or whatever it may be. And I understand that. But most of the people who, enroll in therapy do it because they want to talk to someone, in therapy. So that made sense, like I wouldn't say I was never like nervous, but I was never like, it was just kind of like, I liked the job because it was talking to people who want to talk, like that was fun for me. I enjoyed it. But, well, that aspect of it I enjoyed. I'm over it now. I no longer find a lot of joy from it, but it's not because of the talking to people. It's more of the content of what's being spoken about. I just don't have the energy to really hold space for that much that often. So I volunteer online, separately, like away from all of that, So just on my own time and energy. But yeah, I've never I wouldn't say that I like, there have been like scenarios where it didn't maybe go like I wanted, but it's like, yeah, I've never had like some experience that was like so bad, like I've always been around fairly sociable people, even if I'm the one who's usually just standing there staring off into space, like I'm usually not the most engaging person, and people will still try to interact. And it's like, you know I'll interact, but it kind of depends, like what's the, like, some people are just easier to talk to than others, like, but for me that's mostly what it is. If somebody wants to talk, I wouldn't say I'm confident necessarily, but I kind of like it's easier for me to do it. I'll definitely engage. And when I pick up on the signs that, like, that's what's happening now, all of a sudden, this is the scenario that we're talking to someone, or someone's trying to talk to you, like, engage with them. If I don't, like, miss that whole signal, that whole set of signals, then, like, it's usually pretty easy. But I don't really, I don't really wanna, like, make it sound like it's that easy. I'm just thinking of, like, the amount of times things have happened where there's been at least a little bit of a conversation, going on. It happens pretty often. It happens pretty often. Usually if I show up somewhere early, that's usually when it happens, or if I stay somewhere late after people leave. So if I get there early and I'm waiting for friends, a lot of times that's when people start interacting, or when I've been there already. And it's later. But, and it might just be San Diego, I don't know, but most of that has happened in San Diego. I don't really know. I don't really know. Like, there's a lot of, um there's a lot, I don't know. I'm trying to think where else. 'Cause I've spent a whole lot of time at bars and clubs. Um, because a lot of stuff doesn't really overlap. Like, I've met people at the beach before, like at the pier, definitely. at the like when it's kind of more of like a bonfire season. But usually people kind of keep to themselves. But on occasion you'll have people like invite you over, or like, you know, um but I don't know. Like I don't really mm, I'm not really too sure. Um if there are other places that I can think of. Sports definitely though. But I don't know, how do people that don't ever go out meet people? And I don't really know how that works. Like I guess that if you're going to do it online, you'd have to meet you'd have to join something where there's people that want to meet up. That's the only thing I could think of. Not necessarily a dating app, but like a group of people that are all looking to meet people locally and just go from there. And even if it's a walking club or something where you're in touch, or like, I went on some dates with somebody who had like a fit family and things like that, where it's like, you're kind of more, you can get more involved with those people, because they're there to get more involved and they want to get more involved. But it doesn't mean that that they're gonna be all the healthiest, uh, people to meet. Like you're still, once you meet people, you're still gonna have to weed out, the goodness of fit and the specific people. You're gonna kind of have to weed out, just kind of like, you're gonna have to weed out. I mean, you don't have to, but I mean, you might end up in some toxic scenarios or around some people that are just really obnoxious, because the way you meet somebody on day one doesn't necessarily mean that day two and day five and day 20 is going to be the same. Like, some people, you settle into knowing them, and it's kind of, you like more of what you learn. And then some people, you meet them and you're like, this person is gonna be a problem in my life, if I involve myself. I'll give you an example. I went to a church before, and it was before I moved to San Diego. There was like someone who was about my age range, and at this church, it started at 3 p.m. because it, at least when I was going there, it did. I mean, they had multiple services, but anyways, the one that I went to was at 3 p.m. And the reason why was because initially when it had started, it was from an offshoot kind of group that wanted to do some kind of like afternoon, vespers or churchy activity after church, just for like activities that people were allowed to do. And so they had like a church service for like collegiate age people. And so I was in that group, and then eventually when there was a pastor who became, ready to pastor a church, that group had already been going strong, and he got involved, and I guess the conference got involved more with it, and they eventually, I wouldn't say they fully developed that into a church, but the time that it was and the space that it was, and the guy who was running it moved out of the country, and then with around that time, I think it kind of got evolved into this church. It was like the perfect setting. It was already available. There were already people who wanted to do that, and so they just made it like a collegiate church, but it wasn't fully that. So that's why it started at 3 p.m., because they didn't want to take people from the other churches, but they wanted people that were that age range to mingle and socialize. And so they tried to kind of like interact and like mingle and stuff. And it was it was kind of a social group, like a church gathering. But, you know, once that church had been running for years, people would start coming just from the community. And that church did like, there was like an annual like community fair at one of the sites. It was like a park site or some kind of like site run by that area of the city where they had like a lot of like green space, and they were hosting this kind of like health fair or some kind of fair where the local community could go, and there was like a bunch of free stuff. There were like a couple live performances or like speakers and a stage and stuff, and then like tents, and a lot of it was like, okay, you could get dental advice or like blood pressure taken, or there were like little booths for like your health, and they were able to kind of help you with whatever they legally could do, practice wise, like, because you can't be doing surgeries out in the middle of the park or whatever. But it was something like that, where the church, people from the church, because the church was right down the street, the people from the church got involved in that fair, and they were kind of like interacting and like kind of promoting the church a little bit. And then people from the community were there too, and then people from the church actually went to the fair too, just to kind of check it out, because it was about health and wellness and stuff. So there was like free pens, free pamphlets, stuff like that. So people went, they got their information and everything, or they got help with what they needed, or directed to where they needed to be directed to. A family that was from there started coming to the church, and one of the people was a similar age as me, and because the church started at 3, it would always end like around 5:30. We would have a potluck, and then a lot of the people who had like families or whatever would just go home. And then there were a lot of us that Saturday night, that was our local space, and so we didn't really have other plans, because we realized a lot of us would stay after church, and we'd stay till like midnight, 2 a.m., and we'd just be like roaming around town together locally in that area, because we were already there from church, from the afternoon service, and then from the potluck after, and we'd just stay, and so we'd usually start hanging out around like 7 or 8 p.m. Like, we'd leave the church because we'd be talking for like a couple hours, and then we'd like leave, and then we go eat again or something, or get boba, or go to the beach, or whatever we do. And so we did that almost every weekend. But this new person that came from the family that was local, like a local family, somehow I got involved. I guess I gave this person a ride once or something. I don't remember how I fully got involved. Either I offered to give them a ride, or they asked, and I gave them a ride. And then from that point on, they kept coming back, and they had a friend that lived in another city, like Westminster, so I used to have to go pick up their friend before church too. And I didn't think it was going to go on as long as it did, but I ended up, I felt like I kind of got roped into picking this person up and taking them home and their friend home and stuff, like every Saturday. I didn't like these people, like, I spent more time with them than almost anybody else, and I was just not into them. Like, they lied about things. They, the one that I initially met, who was asking me to pick up her friend that lived a little far away, the one who I had initially met was telling me, that she needed work and all these things. And so, my sister at that time needed new braids, and this lady claimed that she kind of did braids. And I guess my mom paid her, I don't know if it was like $40 or $100 or whatever, but this lady told me that her friend, the one who I go pick up, she said, "Oh, my friend stole all that money that your mom gave me. So can your mom give me more money?" And I'm like, I'm not even going to ask my mom to give you more money, because, like, no, she can't give you more money. Like, and if that's your friend, and I'm still picking up your friend who stole your money, and like, you're still hanging out with her, like, it's like, why don't you ask your friend for your money back? Don't ask my mom to give you more, and things like that, where it's just like, whoa, these people, and they just weren't, nice. There were scenarios like that, and they got more and more involved with the church people, and they just became dramatic. Like, there were lies that they were weaving in and out about, like, who there was a child, and they're like, one of those sisters was lying, saying that the kid was theirs, or wasn't theirs. I don't even know. Like, it couldn't be both of their kid. Like, it was one person's kid or the other one's kid. Like, y'all are sisters. Y'all are both women. You didn't both birth this child. Somebody's lying, you know? But they were trying to get, like, the sympathy from someone who was connected to someone else that was helping them, you know, letting them, like, rent an apartment or rent a space to stay in from someone, and they were, like, lying to that person. And people kind of felt bad that that person was involved. I was feeling like obligated to take them around places, even though I did not like being around them. I didn't like them in my car. I love helping people, but those people, I feel like they got too involved. You know, everyone was trying to help them, but they weren't, like, getting helped. Like, they weren't being helped. They were being helped, but the help wasn't reaching them. Like, they just weren't easy to help. And it's like, I don't know if I drove them around for like a year, but it was more than just to and from church. It was like sometimes they wanted to go out after, and then there was some other event on Monday nights, and I was picking people up and taking them to Garden Grove, and I'm like, dude, I don't even live over there, and now I gotta take you guys back home and stuff. And it's like, they never pitched in for gas. I remember once the lady who ran the Bible study on Mondays in Garden Grove, I remember texting her. I was like, I really want to go, but, you know, I'm short on money, because back then I wasn't really budgeting at all. And I was short on money to not just get me to and from, but I'd have to go pick up all these other people. So she's like, well, if you can get here, I'll give you $20 for the gas, because I would have been driving them around anyway. So she gives me $20, like, right before I'm about to leave or whatever, and they catch it and they see it and they're like, oh, you should have asked us for money. Like, oh, we're sorry that you had to ask for gas money or whatever. And I'm just like, at this point, I'd been giving them rides for like months. And it's on me too, you know, because at least then I was quite a bit of a pushover. But it's on me too, you know, it's on me too that, you know, I allowed it. Like, I didn't speak up about any of it. I was a grumpy Gus, and I would, you know, on my face and with my demeanor, you could probably tell that I wasn't, like, enjoying their presence or their company. But I also didn't keep a distance. I didn't stay away. I kept coming back every week, you know, and I was pretty consistent with church. And so I would go all the time. And so I was pretty consistent in my life, and I wasn't going to, like, miss church because of them. And so I still went, but it really interfered with my life. And it's like, if you meet people like that, you never know their situation. I mean, these people, they weren't someone that, like, on the surface I was, like, trying to date or anything like that. It wasn't a situation like that at all. But it was just community people that I was like, okay, I'll probably give them a couple rides, or ride this one time and it's going to be chill. Or if somebody asks me and I don't really have a reason to say no, I'll usually say yes. You know, if it's a favor, I'll usually say yes. But, you know, at a certain point, I was like, this is totally inconveniencing me. You know, I'm not getting anything out of this but expenses and headaches from these people. And they also weren't all that nice to be around. Their personalities weren't nice. You know, they just expected a lot, and it was overwhelming at a time when I wasn't doing that great financially either. So it's like, you know, but when I do have hard times, I like helping people because it kind of gives me something to do. But it was like they were overextending themselves, their needs to me, and it was just too much. But the only thing that I was like, okay, well, I had an easy out because I knew I was moving to San Diego. So I was like, I'm just going to ride this out till I got to move, you know. But I was like, oh my gosh. So I never really was able to I could have just been like, I don't want to give them rides anymore. And I'm pretty sure that the church would have supported that, because a lot of these people hung out with my friends too, because I was bringing them around all the time because they were always in my car. Not always, but like Saturday was a big night for us to hang out and a big day for us to hang out. So it's like they were hanging out on my schedule, which was like the whole afternoon till early the next morning a lot of times. So because that's how I like to hang out, and they weren't like take me home early, and I wasn't going to take them home early, we kind of just hung out. And I mean, I had fun with my friends, but I didn't have fun with them. And I could see it clearly now, but like back then, you know, I would just interact with whoever the heck and not really think about how it's going to affect me. And, you know, it's really hard for that kind of stuff to not affect a person. I'm not even going into all the details of the stuff that happened. That's just the stuff that I'm kind of comfortable sharing, because I don't want to get too out of control talking about things like that. But I've already been talking about it forever. But yeah, I'm kind of oh my goodness, I'm waiting for all these cars. So those are some of the ways that I've identified, might be easier to consider for people to meet someone new. But just definitely, be careful, kind of know what I'd say, kind of know what mindset you're in when you're meeting people. I've learned my lesson about the rides thing. I don't really give people rides anymore. I don't really offer unless I know I'm going to be like right next to them, or if I really, really, really am like wanting to see them or want to talk to them longer, then I'll be like, hey, like, let's take my car, I'll drive, whatever, but it's rare for me now that I've way overextended myself in my younger years when a lot of people I knew didn't have cars. And I knew I was lucky to have a car too. Like, it was definitely a blessing, and I knew that. I was aware of that. And so I was like, let me try to be generous, because when I didn't have a car, my friends were, driving me all over town too, but I don't think I was ever like asking people to take me on errands and stuff. It was like, there's certain stuff where unless it's like urgent, maybe while my car's in the shop at the most, or like if it's like a hard time and it's like a little bit of a situation, like lately I'll get rides with people, because my car, it depends if we're going somewhere far, but like, say for example, if my friends wanted to go to Bear, I'm not driving this car to Bear, but if I know they want to go to and from at the same time that I want to go to and from, I'd probably try to catch a ride with one of them, because I'm not driving this car. And, I don't want to go out of my way to rent a car if literally it's like we could be sharing a ride to and from and spend that time together and, still end up at the same event, within the same time that we were going to do it anyways. It's like, but it's not really me just trying to use people. It's like, I'll pay for gas, and if I can't, I'll say so. Or if I don't want to, I'll say so. Or I'll try to pitch in and like buy something else. Like, hey, get everybody a smoothie. Or like, just like a nice gesture, like something to pitch in. And sometimes I don't, because it just slips my mind. I just don't think about it. But I'm not comfortable just like using people, for transportation out of my own convenience. I'm not really comfortable with that. It's, I've definitely, people have taken advantage of that with me, so it hasn't happened recently, I don't think, but yeah, before I moved to San Diego, up until that point, there were multiple people I'd been shuttling around, and some people I didn't really mind as much, but it was mostly like the people who were always running late, or when my energy was already zapped and it's like, I gotta leave a little early now just to pick you up, it's like, but again, it was on me. I didn't say no. Like, it was my car. I could have said no. They could have probably found somebody else to do it. Like, I knew a lot of people who knew a lot of people. So it's like, if you say yes, of course they're gonna rely on you. In LA, by the way, maybe if I lived in another city, it would be a different situation, but LA is just one of the least convenient places in the world to even try to drive around. So, if you can imagine that, with all the traffic as it is and everything, it's not like a straightforward, like, oh, I'm just dropping you home. It's like, sometimes the dropping you home is like 45 minutes out of my way, and I might already be tired or like lack of sleep or super busy. So it's just stuff like that. You got to be aware of it. You got to figure out what it is for you that would be something where it's like you could consider people getting a little comfortable and overreaching. Like, if you're meeting random people, you kind of want to know what that looks like, of like, if somebody's overreaching and like expecting you to kind of like do certain things, like, oh, you get to a restaurant and then like, how come you're always paying for them? Or they always strategically forget their wallet? or they're always like forgetting to pay or whatever. And it's one thing if it's like, I mean, sometimes that's just how it is, you know. Sometimes people just expect you to pay or whatever, but it's like if they're also not even a nice person, or like, you know, if you don't want to do it, or if you can't really extend yourself to really stay financially balanced and do it, you know, sometimes people, you know, are really selfish, and, you know, they're not going to want to hang out with you because you don't want to pay for their food. You know, they're not going to give you the time of day because you're not doing what they want you to do. You know, they're going to treat you a little more, you know, standoffish. I wouldn't say that's something I've commonly experienced, but I do know that about people. I wouldn't say it's a rule of thumb, but my take on things is, if you can, I mean, you might sound like a cheapskate, but if you're out with someone, when the waiter comes, you know, if you're at a restaurant, for example, ask them to split the check right when you order. Just be like, I'd like the burger and fries and lemonade, and can we please split, you know, can you please split the check by item, or by, you know, owner, or whatever you say. Like, can you not split it in half, but can we split the check, you know, to pay for our items, you know, individually. And a lot of times the waiters will forget, but if you ask them early, usually they're not going to have like a problem telling you what the rules are, because sometimes the rules are that they can't do it, or like if there's too many people, they can't do it, or if there's a certain amount that they can't spend, then they can't do it, or whatever that looks like. But usually they're going to be able to do it, and it's not going to generally be a problem to try to get things kind of itemized. That's not going to generally be a problem. The reason why I say that is because some people, if they know you're paying or paying part of it, they're going to order way more expensive dishes or way more food. They're going to practically go grocery shopping off of that list. I've ordered food to go before, especially when I'm out late, or if I'm like at a hotel or something, and I'm at a place already and it's already late and I don't want to go to a second place. I've ordered like a meal to go, so I'll have something for breakfast, or if I'm going to be up late night or something, I'll have something for later. If I'm crashing at someone's house or something, maybe I want another burrito, so I don't have to order food or go out again, because sometimes people don't have freaking food at their house, and I like to eat sometimes, you know. It's like, goodness, like if we're going to be up all night playing video games and drinking, I probably need to have more food with me later on, you know, just, you know, for hangover's sake. But that's one thing I've noticed. You know, sometimes when you say you're going to pay, be careful, because sometimes people will take advantage of that. Even if it's a little bit of advantage, people take a little advantage. You know, they're not considerate sometimes. If you've seen those videos on like YouTube where there's like these ladies ordering all this like shellfish and all this kind of like super expensive food and like fancy drinks and stuff, and expecting some dude to like pay for it. Or like I've even known people in my life who have told me like that they get upset when somebody else, you know, doesn't mention first that they're paying for everyone, or for the whole for the bill, you know, because they don't want, you know, they want to order more. They're like, oh, I would have ordered more if I knew someone else was paying. But I don't really think like that. But I also notice it's like, well, someone else is putting themselves out there to offer, or to give the opportunity for that. But I would say be careful, because people will take advantage of that, and they'll be like, oh, like, you're giving the opportunity, so they'll take the advantage. And maybe someone's really hungry, like maybe they really need the food. That's a whole different situation. I would hope, I don't know. I know that exists, where there would be people that, you know, are in need, and it's not like they're maybe not fully taking advantage like that, like in a way like they could afford it but they'd rather not, but they're taking advantage like it's been a struggle for them to like afford food. like a food insecurity type of situation, which is realistic and it does happen. So, and um I would just say, those things, don't get catfished too. Don't send people gift cards. Don't freaking uh, don't pay for anything. If anybody's asking you to pay for anything, don't pay for anything, especially if you've never met them before. Like, why would you ever be paying? And even if you have met them, why would somebody who you first meet be not able to pay for stuff when you already knew you were going out? It's like, well, what were they expecting if they didn't bring their money, But I mean, sometimes urgent things happen. Like, I've talked about how my cell phone died before when I was trying to get a lift somewhere and I was in Hollywood and that's nowhere near where I live. And, I talked about that before. But there's also other scenarios, but I don't know. Like, I think that's kind of most of the stuff that I've witnessed firsthand. That's been kind of toxic scenarios for me, where it's been like somebody somebody isn't really providing, they're just kind of like taking advantage of a situation. I don't know. I'm starting to get more selfish though with meeting with people. Like, if I don't know them, I'd rather try to meet somewhere closer to me, just in case they kind of bail out. But then sometimes if they live far, it's like that might make it so that they don't actually meet because you live far. So, that could deter someone from actually meeting up with you. But I've kind of noticed, like, when people are for real and they want to meet you, they'll put in a little bit of effort, and so unless, like I've talked about before, how anxiety can make it look like someone's not interested. But if they seem interested all the way up into the point where where you're trying to schedule to hang out, it's like, why were they available every day to talk or regularly to talk, and then the second when you go to meet up or try to plan to meet up, they all of a sudden have like nothing to say and like disappear? Like, that kind of thing to me is kind of like something's up. Either if they're not anxious, something else is up, because most of us, I would say, kind of know our schedules. You know which days you're off. Like, there are scenarios where you don't. Some people have jobs where it's like more sporadic of a schedule. Like, you have the hours per week, but they don't tell you what they are. I've had jobs before where you came in one day, I don't remember, let's say it was like Wednesday. You come in Wednesday to get your schedule, and then by Sunday, if you had any on-call days for like Monday or Tuesday or something like that, Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, but it gave you your printout for the whole weekend, like from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't know. It was some weird thing where you'd have to come in person, get your schedule on a certain day, and then your schedule week by week. And then there were some days you were on call, so those days you had to call in by a certain time to see if you needed to work that night. But it wasn't yeah, it wasn't yeah, that's mostly what you'd have to do. You'd have to basically, do it that way. But I don't know. I don't know if there are other ways that people could kind of like just not make a good first impression. I would say mostly watch out for that kind of stuff. Like, the things where you get kind of blindsided and then you're just like, oh, like, I kind of have to like take care of this like now. But I mean, and especially if somebody always has too many like urgent things happening for early on, and I mean, it happens, but it's like, if their life never gets easier and it's just thing after thing after problem after problem. Oh, my tire blew out. Oh, my engine blew out. Oh, like, reasons why they're canceling or rescheduling. Or even if you have met, but then they they have trouble scheduling because things are always coming up. I lost my wallet, I got scammed, I lost my job, I got another job, some other family member died. It's like maybe these things are really happening, but it's kind of like after a while it's like, dude, like you got a lot going on right now, you know, like unfortunately if it's true, it's unfortunate, but if it isn't true, because sometimes I don't know if it really is true or not, but I've never had anybody go too extreme on that, but it's like there have been people that I've wanted to meet that said that they wanted to meet that have kind of been like that, just kind of rescheduling over and over and over again with weird excuses, even though we've met in person before. And then there have been people, or we even knew each other. Like this might even be people that I know that are friends. Like I've known people that kind of like you just can't ever seem to kind of like you know that when you schedule you're never gonna meet. Like you already know that once you've sent that message and like made the plans, you're just like, well, I might as well make other plans because we're not gonna do anything. Like you kind of learn that that's usually how you're gonna communicate. But I don't really know. I haven't really seen a lot of other things. Like when you're with someone, if they're not nice to the wait staff or the chefs or the door person, you know, if they're very like demeaning towards like service workers, just don't interact with that person. Like this is just, some people maybe they don't know better, but that to me is really like, it's gross. Or like the people who like, I'm not saying like, okay, if you accidentally spill something and there's no way for you to clean it, but it's like the people who kind of have the attitude like, oh, it's their job to like pick this up or whatever, you know. Like in some scenarios, obviously you're not going to go to the back and grab a mop and start like cleaning if you accidentally spill something, you know, but you know, I don't know, like you I think you guys know what I mean. And then, you know, I saw the other day when I went to In-N-Out, I went inside In-N-Out, and there was a small family, like a couple with a baby, and I guess the baby had been like throwing fries and food all over the floor, but they weren't like, the baby was very young, and they weren't like trying to be like obnoxious and like throwing a tantrum or anything. Like they were just dropping food. They weren't throwing it necessarily. They were just dropping it. It was rolling off of them or whatever. And so the food, the floor underneath their table was just destroyed. And even though the staff cleans at In-N-Out, you know, like this couple, they got the napkins and they wiped off the table. And the lady actually got on the floor and like wiped up part of the floor and like wiped the dirt off the dirty floor. She wiped their baby's like crumbs and fries and all the junk off the floor. I mean, I'm waiting in there because you know how long In-N-Out takes, and so the whole time I'm 15 minutes waiting for, you know, and the whole time this baby's just dropping food all over the place, and that's how babies are. But it's like, you know, like that's a different kind of thing, you know, where you see somebody clean up like that versus if somebody, I mean, even if somebody did leave that, I wouldn't say it would be excessive, like, because they did have a baby, and it's like, are you really expected to clean? Like, it was a mess, but it wasn't, like, so much of a mess, like, more than what I would say a normal, you know, situation with kids or whatever might drop things, and people don't usually kneel down on the floor and clean it. You know, it's like expected, you know, there's staff here that's gonna clean it for the next people. When they see someone get up and leave, you know, In-N-Out, they're pretty diligent because it's a packed place, and so they do clean up pretty often. But, you know, this family went out of their way to like clean, and I mean, they weren't like cleaning like with soap or whatever, like making it super nice, but like, you wouldn't have known that it had looked like that. By the time they left that table, it was like night and day. Like, it looked way better. And people could have probably just sat there and not felt like, oh, this is disgusting, I can't even sit here. But yeah, like, But I'd say if somebody had the attitude that was kind of like, someone's gonna clean it anyways, and especially when they say it out loud, like if one spouse was to say to the other like, oh, maybe we should clean this, and then the other one was like, they're gonna clean it anyways. Like, of course you don't know someone's situation. Maybe they're injured, maybe they're just super in a rush, but it's like it wasn't their job to clean. But I feel like when somebody has that mentality where it's like, because they're service workers, they're the ones who are gonna do it. Just like at a hotel, it's like you don't leave it a disaster. Like, you clean up what you can, and maybe if you're rushing, you might leave things. Like, there are times where I haven't, like, maybe taken out the trash. It wasn't like some old rotting thing, but it's like I'll usually at least put the trash in one area, so it's like they don't have to like come and get everything. I'll usually separate recycling bottles and stuff because I'm always drinking water and getting like those gallons of water and stuff at hotels. Like you don't have to like clean it yourself, but it's like you gotta kind of make it look presentable. And for me, it's like, because I stay at the same places all the time, I don't want to leave it a mess and have that reputation of like, oh, you're the one who like destroys our rooms. It's like I usually just, at the very least, make sure, I might not fully make the bed, but it's like the blankets are on the bed, the trash is where the trash needs to be, and it's not something that's like a disgusting mess. It's like I put everything, like, I think the worst I've ever left it was when there wasn't room in the trash cans or any other bags for trash, because they didn't have like extra trash bags and I didn't have extra bags, and I had a whole bunch of water bottles and I just kind of stood them all up lined up kind of neatly like along the side of the sink. Like, that's probably about the worst I've left something. Or I've probably forgotten stuff in the fridge. That's probably happened before too. But I feel like I don't leave rotten stuff. I don't leave smelling stuff. I'm not like destroying the rooms with anything. I'm just keeping it normal. I've probably left like a towel on the floor or something. I think when I'm done with my towels, I usually just kind of throw them in a corner somewhere, like at hotels, because if they have room service, they'll kind of just pick them up at least. Because if you put them back on the rack, they might sometimes assume that you don't need towels or something. And a lot of times they say that, to leave the towels on the floor. At least they used to. But yeah, I like to leave places not completely destroyed. I mean, you're gonna spill food sometimes. You're gonna spill drinks sometimes. It happens, but you don't have to like leave things like that. So I don't really know. But yeah, I think it's definitely possible to meet people. You just want to be careful. Once you do start meeting people, you want to be careful, to make sure that it's not going to be someone who's like, now I've met somebody and they're completely like annoying and getting in my way and they're obnoxious and using me for some reason or another, in one way or another, you know, you don't want to be getting like manipulated, especially these days where people are broke and they don't want to spend any money. People are, more likely nowadays to try to take advantage. If you extend a drink or extend a ride or extend anything, there are so many people out there that can't afford much, that like get a little overly excited with somebody paying for them with stuff sometimes, and they really lately might be more likely to kind of ask you for stuff. When people start asking for favors and like, can you buy my groceries or whatever, like, it's kind of like, okay, like, I just met you, like, you know, I mean, it sucks to have to say, but I mean, you kind of do want to know what that looks like for you, where your boundaries are before you even start meeting people, because people will ask, like, you know, and I think that people in deep need should ask. If you are in need and you don't have any other thing, anybody or anything at all, any resource at all, and you're really struggling, like, don't go hungry or like sleep on the street if you can like ask somebody to like help you a little bit, but it's like if you just met someone to date them and now all of a sudden you're trying to get them to pay for a hotel for a week, it's kind of like I'm pretty sure they weren't coming into that scenario trying to like have someone that they're like volunteer helping. They were trying to go on a date. They weren't trying to like sponsor somebody. So it's kind of like, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with asking for help, but it's like I do think there are people out there that use dating apps like some kind of like support resource or something, and they need a case manager, or they need like some kind of like somebody like that, and they kind of try to get their needs met more than just like socially and stuff. They try to get their needs met through, you know, like dating apps. And so it's like it's out there. It's definitely out there, and people will play the compassion card and all that. And it's up to you if you want to delve in to things with people and give your hard-earned money away to some random new person you just met. Like I'm not always against it. Honestly, I'm not against giving people money or helping them out. I'm not against that at all, but it gets to a point where it's like, are they using you? You want to know. And I'm glad that I haven't had so many experiences like that to a point where it got out of control. Like I've never been sending like $50,000 overseas to anybody or gotten catfished like that or anything. But watch that show. If you're not familiar with catfishing or the new techniques, watch a couple episodes of those like scammers getting caught, those PayPal scammers and all that, those romance scammers. Watch a couple episodes of that kind of stuff just so you can familiarize yourself with the new things that are out there. If you're older age, you're kind of more of a target. If you're job searching, guys, that's another thing, I've come across in the last couple years. If you're job searching, you're going to have random people reaching out to you. They're smart now. They get the area codes that are like not the Google Voice area code, and they'll be messaging you. If they tell you to go on the WhatsApp or Telegram or some crazy thing like that, I always look up their numbers on like Zaba search or something and then start calling them by the name that's on there, because it's like I've had people reach me, they're like, oh, we're hiring for this or that, and it's like, if you've been applying to like so many jobs, like it's going to be hard to keep up sometimes, and you just respond to whoever's responding to you if you're not super organized about it. And people will reach out sometimes by text, and so sometimes you don't want to, and if it looks like an area code you recognize and then they start reaching out, I always tell them, send me your job application and your LinkedIn or whatever, and try to like check them out, and if they don't have a website, they're probably not a business. If they're not on LinkedIn, they're probably not really hiring. If their name doesn't match the name when you do a Zaba search on it, or if the Zaba search doesn't come up with any kind of name or anything for a number that's been in existence for a while, then it's probably a scam, because most business numbers have a number that's been attached for a while. If the rate that they're offering sounds way too abnormal, I've had places say, okay, make like $100 to $300 a day. Like, talk to me on WhatsApp. It's like, okay, this is somebody trying to scam me. Like, and I just tell them, oh, sorry, I don't use apps. Like, it's against my religion. I don't use apps. I only can text, and you can only send me the website. I only use Safari and texting. And that's what I always tell people. I only use Safari and texting. Like, I can text you, or you can give me a link and I'll look at it in Safari, but I'm not sending Google Drive information. I'm not sending, anything. It's like, at this point, all these people should be on these major platforms anyways. They're not going to be reaching out to me for $300 an hour, like through WhatsApp. Like, that makes zero sense whatsoever, so, if you come across even job related stuff that's like that, that's kind of a newer thing, because everyone's selling everybody else's information. I'm pretty sure those job things, they're not like trying to date or anything, but just don't do it. Don't do it. But I don't know, guys. It's hard out there, but I don't really know many ways to meet people other than if you're going to go to meetups or already pre-planned events that are social events or speed dating or some kind of event where you can kind of like, meet up with people, you know, I don't know. If you're not having good luck with the apps, I don't really know what to say, but you got to get outside. You got to get out, but while you're getting out, just be careful because there's some crazy stuff going on out there. Is not always safe. People aren't as stable as they maybe once were. In a lot of ways. And sometimes people are like-minded. Obviously there are a lot of like-minded people out there because everybody's saying the same thing. Like, how do we meet people? How do we meet people? How do we meet people? It's like, that's kind of a common thing. Like in the LGBT world, and particularly with women, it's not the easiest thing to be meeting people. Somebody has to initiate something, and if nobody's initiating anything, it's like, how's that even going to happen? Like, and the apps have that problem with them where it's like people don't initiate, or they do initiate and then nobody shows up, or both people have, if there's two or more people, they have to follow through with the plan. It's like, even if you're getting to a point where people are initiating and then there's no follow through sometimes, and that's kind of where things break apart, is that there's often no follow through. If you do get one date and there is a follow through, people just get so caught up in things nowadays, with their lives, that it can be very hard to kind of meet people and then keep meeting other people. But I don't know. Like, I don't think it's impossible to meet people. I just think, the apps are only one way, and if you're using the apps, you have to use it sometimes in a way that's not just as classic as like swipe, swipe, swipe. You got to be a little more clever. Sometimes people have their Instagrams on there. You can maybe reach them on there. I tend to kind of maybe friend request people and send a message, because swiping is kind of like they have to swipe back, and so I've done the whole like friend request people. I've noticed that the Her app makes it so you have to have a they now put in the little chat icon, they put a number in there. Sometimes it doesn't even always mean that you have a message now, since they've updated it. It just goes to their notifications for like their rules or whatever. And so that's one thing that's annoying, because for me, I was only really at a place where I'm like responding to people who hit me up first. I'm not usually on there in the last couple of years really like actively looking, but if I happen to be on there just because I'm checking messages or whatever, if there are any messages, and it's not like there's always messages, but it's not like there's even usually messages, it's like sometimes, but I'm trying to check it more frequently, so it's not like, oh, like, so this person messaged you like 8 months ago, It's like, so at least maybe within the same week I'll be responding, if anything. But I don't know what I think about these apps. If you pay, it doesn't mean you're gonna get more. I don't know if queer women can go on Grindr. I don't know. I think trans people can. I don't know if cis women can. And if they did, who would they be finding? I don't really know. But I really don't know how that works. But if there are apps like that, there are a lot of times people are there trying to hook up. But if there are apps like that where you're not really trying to hook up, but it's more of like an immediate meeting up with someone, that might work better, I think, than the long wait of the lesbian app, where it's like, how long do we need to be waiting? It's like, can we speed this up, please? Like, and I don't even mean like people need to meet the same day or even the same week, but I feel like there's no more momentum. After like 2 weeks, it's like, why are we still talking if we haven't even met each other? Like, that to me is weird. Like, especially when it's like strangers. I don't know. I don't think it takes 2 weeks to get to know if you want to meet somebody in person unless they're really acting that weird, but or if they're hardly responding at all. Um, but yeah, I haven't posted in a while, so of course this one's super lengthy. If you even got to the end of this, congratulations. You've accomplished something if you listen to this whole thing. But I hope it's helpful at least, because I don't know. I can't really think of a lot of different kind of ways. You know, if you're not an outgoing person, I think I've explained some ways where you can kind of meet through apps still, but you might still have to leave your house. There's Club Lilies that Jamie Messina runs on Facebook. Um, Club Lilies is for like older women, I guess. I don't know if everyone on there's old, but older. Um, but you'll see the same thing in there, you know? It's like people. I guess people on there kind of post more for meetups. They don't necessarily post for like dating. There are people that are kind of like, they'll throw something out in the chat and then like, who knows if somebody in the background is like DMing them or like what. But I've seen people throw something out in the chat and nobody responds, and I'm just like, dude, like, y'all keep a conversation going. But I don't know, like, it can be a little confusing sometimes. Um, that's for sure. Um, and I don't know, I don't think it's negative. I try not to be like negative about it. Like, it's just changed. You know, the online dating world has changed. All that kind of stuff has completely changed. And, you know, dating apps had their golden years, and now people say they're trash. It's not fully trash, but it's like, if it's your only method, it might be trash. Um, but you got to kind of incorporate other methods and, you know, within your comfort zone, and bring a buddy with you if you're not that comfortable. Like, bring someone with you, you know, to maybe meet initially, and then if you gotta go, you gotta go. And it doesn't have to be some like romantic thing even. You can maybe tell your friend to, you know, that, okay, coffee's over. I'm gonna go to lunch or on a walk with this person or something. You know, if your friend kind of knows what's up and they kind of know the deal. But it's like, you know, usually you're not bringing a friend to the date unless it's like a poly kind of situation. But you could do that. That would be one thing if you're uncomfortable. Just bringing somebody with you. Just to check out the situation for a little bit. But I don't know. I don't know, guys. I think that's enough. um, I gotta get on with the rest of my afternoon here, and hopefully this helps you to contribute to some of your social experiences. All right, have fun. Thanks for listening.